something that's quite common as well with people who have eczema is, I can't go out because I look horrible and I hate the way my skin looks, everyone's going to judge. Instead, reframe that to, I love myself unconditionally. I don't care what people think because I want to have a good time. I'm going out regardless.
Welcome everyone to the Skin Deep podcast. I'm so excited for our guest speaker that we have today. We have Mehek here with us, and she's a hypnotherapist, and I really am so excited to talk to her on the platform today because there's so much information when it comes to overall knowing what does our mental health, what does our overall mind kind of do to us when it comes to our skin, our body, and our health. So welcome to the show, Mehak. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, thank you. So before we get too deep into it, because we already kind of started talking, and I was like, wait, before we get in, I want to know, tell me, how did you get into the industry? What brought you into the industry? I'm really curious to know that.
Oh, so I actually suffered with eczema myself. However, I never had it as a child. It was only in my late teenage years and early 20s that it developed. But when it suddenly hit me, it was so severe, so horrible that I tried to look for alternative routes because eventually I realized that I'd tried all the typical things that people initially advise you to do, particularly when you go into doctors. And they tell you, oh, use a steroid cream will go away within a couple of weeks, and then they say you just need to moisturize. And then, of course, I did my own research as well, and I tried different diets, I looked at different products, I tried to figure out whether I had any allergies. I did everything you could possibly think of, and I was just driving myself insane, thinking, what on earth is happening? Why is this
Mm.
happening? And why so suddenly? Because, as I mentioned, I never had it as a child, so I thought there must be something underlying there that I can't quite figure out just yet. And I went on a journey of, trying to figure out what's going on within me, and went on a journey of self growth as well. But my eczema was just not going away until I eventually found hypnotherapy, and I think that just opened the door for me. So I had a couple of sessions myself in, I think, maybe 3 or 4 years in from like suffering from severe eczema, and I gained some really valuable insights from that. It was almost like the starting point for me, and then I was so inspired by it and so fascinated by what happened that I decided to train as a hypnotherapist. And then, because you go so much deeper into understanding your own behaviors and your own issues and past traumas, everything just started to make sense to me. And it's also kind of like good timing in a way, because I was at a job while I was still in training that was stressing me out to the max. Almost every day I'd go in, have a panic, and by the end of the day I'd be in fear, knowing that this is going to trigger my eczema now. Tomorrow I'm going to wake up with a worst flare, possible. And most of the time I was right, it would happen, and I just thought, okay, this is stress related. This is a lot more than just the skin reacting to
Hmm.
something, external. It's a lot to do with my internal state and how I process things. And stress is also, I think, an umbrella. So there's so much that comes under it. Is
Yeah.
understanding why you react to stress the way you do, and I guess also like calming down the nervous system and figuring out why you might be sensitive to certain things. There's just so much involved with it. But so for the long answer, that's basically how I got into this. And especially because I've got my own personal experience with eczema, I really wanted to be able to help others in a much quicker way than what I had to experience, and figure
Yeah.
out what's going on for them, like what is the root cause behind their eczema.
But thank you for giving me the full explanation because it's always good to hear when people are have already experienced it and it's
Mm,
what kind of guided them to where their path is today, like what their career choice is. Because I just find that a lot of the times when I hear people that are, doing a career, they're just like, yeah, I just decided to do it, it's fun. Whereas then, when you have like a really connected experience as to why you're doing something, I find you have
mm.
like a much bigger passion. There's a drive within you just to really push the envelope and really help people with whatever it is that you're specializing in, right? So I completely
Absolutely.
resonate with it because I dealt with eczema since I was a child, and I didn't think I
Mm.
was going to get into anything that has to do with eczema. I was like, no, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to be doing this. And lo and behold, it finds me in this kind of path towards, helping people with eczema. So I completely resonate with, you don't really know. It just kind of drops on you. And then you're like, I want to help people with
Mm.
this. I really want to, share it because it's very true. There's so much information about there in terms of eczema, but it's like some people kind of stagger their way through fixing their eczema, and then there's some people that are like, I got the support, I got the connection, I got the help, and
Mm.
it helps them fast track on their healing. And I think that's what needs to happen now, is that instead of people stumbling through their healing journey, they're getting the right
Yeah.
tools and the right information faster to help them, but also to kind of debunk the things that they're like, I don't know what the heck's going on. I don't know what's triggering it. I don't know what's this. I don't know what that. So I feel like this is such a great time right now where people are getting the right things that they need or the right resources that they need to help them fast track their healing journey.
Absolutely. You hit the nail on the head with that. That's exactly it. And
Yeah.
I think once you find out what's going on within you, it's going to save you so much more time rather than stumbling along. And that's the other thing I realized. I spent so much time trying to figure it out alone and needed a little bit more guidance and I guess also more awareness that it's not just as simple as applying something, although that can help. Like there are certain natural creams that are amazing and, you know, I would recommend them, but you have to kind of look at the whole picture and also be really committed to your own healing, like wanting to find out the answers for yourself rather than sort of stumbling along, as you said, because I know how easy it is for that to happen. I've been through it
Yeah.
myself.
Yeah, because like I never told people that, hey, this one cream is going to solve your issue. This one thing is going to
Mm,
help your issue. It's a whole plethora of like layers of things that people have to get through. And a lot of times it is the mental. It's like there's a mental
yeah.
component to it, or a psychic component to it, where it's just like, I didn't know that I'm waking up in the morning triggering my eczema through anxiety, or I don't know that when I'm going to sleep at night because I'm thinking about these things, it's going to trigger my anxiety or trigger my eczema. Like, there's a lot of different layers to it. If it's
Mm,
very simple, very not very deep eczema concerns, then yeah, a product can probably help you get on your way. You might have to choose better products that are not deteriorating your skin barrier, then that kind of makes sense. But then when there's like a full blown body, eczema going on, then that's when I'm like, oh no, there's something deeper in there, and we have to figure it out. Whether that's your gut, your mental, it's like your environment, what you're using on your skin. Like there's a whole different layer to that. Whereas if it's just like, okay, I'm getting a little bit of a rash on my fingers and so forth, that's something that can probably be fixed a little bit easier. But then when you're going into the deep layers and it's like coming all over your body and all the different extremities on your body, then there's a whole lot more deeper layers to there where people need to kind of discover that. So I agree. It's
exactly.
it's it's so much more than just putting on a cream and saying this is the miracle cream. It fixes everything. It's not. Stop lying to people.
If only there was such a thing, it would make life easier.
Absolutely. Build a
But
trillionaire
unfortunately,
company, and then everyone would be like, everyone is awesome, everything is fine. There's no like, there's no skin problems in the world, so it would be so much
exactly.
easier. Yeah. Well, I wanted to kind of go into a few things because, like, again, this whole podcast is about going deeper into, all the things that cause people to have skin concerns and so forth. And like I said, being a hypnotherapist, I don't know anything about that, but I definitely know there is a lot that you uncover with it. So I'm curious to know, what have you kind of figured out that tends to be that connection between the skin and what you do with your work? Like, how does that kind of unfold and how does that kind of connect to each other? I'm curious.
Sure, there's so much I could
Yeah.
go into with this. I'll try. I'll try not to talk about it forever and give you a good summary of it. But
Okay.
what I find is that hypnotherapy it sort of allows things to open up within your subconscious, and the subconscious is where everything is stored. So it stores all your past memories, any negative experiences, your limiting beliefs, emotions. So it's like opening up the door to your inner hidden world.
Okay.
And that's where we gain the answer. So something that I do in my work is, I might have mentioned this earlier, but discover the root cause of people's eczema. And I do that by using a certain hypnotic technique where I just allow the subconscious to bring the answers to my clients. And often that is the starting point, although that can be quite intensive. So sometimes we do it a little bit later on.
Mm-hmm.
But I also just find out what's going on for the person, because no treatment plan is the same. It really depends on where someone is
Yeah.
at and what would be the best first step. And I've learned that sometimes it's just working on stress and we don't necessarily need to go into the root cause. And sometimes I find that people want to jump straight into it and then they gain the answers and then we work on whatever comes up during that session. So
Yeah.
those are some of the ways that I use hypnotherapy to help people with eczema, but it's so varied, and this is the thing that I also really want to highlight and stress, that it's so unique for each person.
Mm-hmm.
I've worked with so many different clients and not one, I have never had two similar cases. Like, there
Yeah.
are similar situations and things that they say, but it's so different. So it's really just about getting to know the person, their past, whether there's any trauma there, whether we need to do some releasing, whether we just need to help them have that strong, resilient mindset and change the way that they respond to the things that trigger them.
Mm. And I think that's really fascinating because, like you said, no one's going to be the exact same. And sometimes, you almost think that there's going to be like this consistent kind of, step by step to getting into, uncovering what people are dealing with and so forth. But again, we all suffer from different, traumas and different kinds of things. That's definitely,
Mm.
why everyone's path is a little bit unique. Do you find that the way people hold on to those traumas is consistent as to why they have these skin issues? Like, for example, I may have a family trauma that made me feel a certain way. Because I'm harboring it, that's what's triggering me
Mm.
to feel a certain way, and that's what comes out on the skin. I think that's what I really want to kind of really figure out for people to understand why their skin, I mean, their things that they're dealing with is what triggers their skin,
Mm.
complexities. Could you kind of break that down for me?
Sure, I'm glad that you asked me that, because with my clients who have experienced some trauma, something that's quite interesting is that they don't even realize they're traumatized. People often think that you need to go through some major horrible life event and then that is considered
Mm,
trauma, but actually trauma is something that is as simple as someone doing something bad to you or something to hurt you
okay.
that stays with you. And I've had clients who are very aware that they've had difficult situations in the past. There's a lot that's happened to them that is stored within their body and they have that awareness.
Hmm.
But then I have other clients who think, oh, I don't think I've been through, any trauma. And then when we get into it, they realize exactly there's so much. But I always say that if you have an open mind going into it, into this healing journey, wanting to move past your barriers and move past the things that have been keeping you stuck, and just ultimately live a life where you're feeling your absolute best. That is my mission and goal for
Yeah.
everyone, even unrelated to eczema. Just feeling good and be able to live your life, then
Hmm.
you will see change. Like, all it really takes to improve is having that commitment and that openness to change, because change can be scary as well, and sometimes revisiting the past, and especially if you know you've got trauma, it can be really scary. So I
Hmm.
find that some people don't want to go back, and that's
Yeah.
absolutely fine. We don't always have to sit and dwell with what happened, but there needs to be that openness that I am going to change. I'm not going to stay stuck with this, and I'm ready to move forward from
Hmm.
whatever has happened.
And is it because that trauma that they have within them, because it's trapped, it is unconscious. They're not really necessarily thinking about it, but it's like a
Mm.
repetitive action that the body is doing to protect itself in the morning or at nighttime and so forth, and it triggers something else, and then all of a sudden they're going into like this overall nervousness, and that nervousness is what's making their skin kind of flare up because they feel like they're under attack or they're trying to defend themselves. Is that kind of what that whole process is?
That's exactly it. If I was to give a summary, I'd say it's exactly that. And trauma also affects our nervous system, and I find that with a lot of people who have eczema, their nervous system is not regulated. They are almost like always so highly sensitive to things, to external triggers. They tend to have a lot of people pleasing tendencies, and that's because they need the validation and self of safety. But yeah, you summed it up perfectly. And something else that I just wanted to add on that is that it's how we learn to live with what's happened to us. And it does reflect on the skin, our internal state, and how we sort of process the things that have happened to us. That also does reflect on the skin.
Yeah, no, it's funny. It just kind of summed up to me when you were talking about it. I was like, I think that's what it makes sense. I feel like it's like a consistent kind of behavior that you're not really conscious of. And that's why I feel like when people are trying to get over certain traumas, they have to interrupt that behavior and create like a new behavior so that they almost override it or release it out of the body. So then that way they're not repeating it. Because then again, like you're saying, when we are regulating our nervous system, they almost have to like rewrite it. Am I kind of correct on that?
Yeah, exactly. It's about rewriting and reframing what's happened, because a situation can happen and then it influences our thoughts and beliefs about the world and also about ourselves. So it's just shifting that so that you have this peace within you and you have this mindset where actually I know something bad has happened, or I know that this is bothering me, but here's how I'm going to reframe it. And that's something I've personally done myself. I used to be a very negative, cynical person and always felt unsafe in the outside world. But now since working on that, I've found that I'm naturally very positive. So even when a bad situation happens, I can almost see the good in it straight away. And it's sort of similar to what you said, just developing that mindset where it just allows you to feel so much better about everything rather than feeling the heaviness from things that happen, because we can't always control situations or what happens in our life. But the one thing we do have control over is our mind, and you can use it to your advantage.
Yeah, no. And I like what you're saying about that is like changing that behavior, because for that whole part where you're talking about the people pleasing, I'm naturally, I like to make everyone happy, laughy, da 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 da, excited, excited, and so forth. But then I didn't realize that that tendency of people pleasing, I would almost sacrifice myself. So then I'd feel this anxiety, of like, oh my God, if I don't make this person happy, they're going to be upset at me. They're going to be this, or if I don't do that, I'm not going to be happy or whatever. And I think that's also what kind of triggered my eczema before. So when I started kind of changing that behavior, putting myself first and not, being that people pleaser, I think what it ended up flipping eventually was this: I'm feeling attacked. Everyone's trying to take away my new sense of freedom. So that was the new trigger that happened to me. And I think it was back in September. I had like one of the biggest episodes of eczema breakout before in my life. Usually it was very tolerable, be a little bit on my hands, but this time around it broke out over my whole entire body. And I had to literally just like slow down and recollect myself and try to figure what the heck happened. And all I keep coming back to is this feeling and this repetitive like story that kept going on until you start to be really aware of it. I didn't realize this story was kind of repeating in my face, which was they're trying to take away my freedom. Like, because I'm having these boundaries now, telling people, no, I can't do this for them. No, I can't do that. I have this schedule. This is all I have. I can contribute. And it almost felt as though I felt under attack in a way. And it was weird because I didn't notice that feeling until one day I was like repeating like a story in my head. I'm like, if I don't tell them no, they're going to come for me, and then they're going to get upset at me that I'm not giving them more of my time. And then I was like, wait, no one's even talking to me. I was like, who are you talking to? Like, I literally said that to myself. I'm like, who are you talking to, Mekisha? It's like 11 o'clock at night. No one's even here, and there's no phone call. No one's like, you're in your bed. Why are you getting upset in your bed? And that's when it dawned on me that the reason why I'm having this eczema episode right now is because I feel that I'm being threatened of my personal space, my personal time.
Mm.
And that's when I had to like reprogram my overall thought process. And I haven't had to do that in a long time. And I think it's because I went from like really being very much involved in working for somebody else to working for myself. And when I see
Mm.
so many people wanting to have some of my time, I was like saying, no, no, no. But then it was like, stay away from me. Don't. So it's like, it clicked into my head that I was having a nervous breakdown because I felt like I was being threatened with my time. So now, since that time to now, I've been literally kind of fixing this story that's in my head of like people wanting my time. I'm like, it's okay, people want my time. They're just gonna have to wait. Instead like kind of talking to myself in a different way and changing that behavior. So what do you think
Yeah.
about that? I'm excited to hear.
Oh wow, that's so fascinating. And this is the thing. Sometimes people don't realize situations like that are impacting your eczema because we don't tend to think those are the typical reasons
Yes.
behind it.
Yeah.
But the fact that you were so aware and what you explained just made so much sense because when we feel attacked, even if it's in a situation like that to do with work, your time, it's still our body's feeling like we're not safe. And when we don't feel safe, that's when the anxiety within us kicks in. That's when the pressure and feelings of being overwhelmed start to really kick in. So it makes so much sense why, in your case, that was the reason behind your eczema. And I think it's so fascinating that when you were realizing that you were able to just sort of say, hold on, actually, this is the reality and let me find a new way. And I think that's exactly how we begin to make changes, just recognizing what's going on for us, our thoughts, where it's coming from, why do we feel the way we do, and then challenging that almost. It's like saying
Yeah.
how much of it is really,
True.
how much I really need to put energy into this, and how can I think of it in a different way that will allow me to feel much better.
Yeah, and safe because it
Mm.
it's so true. Like I didn't take it in. I was sitting there and I was like, Keisha, like there's no one here. Like who are you having this dialogue with? Like we play this movie in our head, and I
Yeah.
actually had to sit there for a day or two and look at how many times that movie was playing in my head of someone asking me for my
Mm.
time, and it was specific people too, and I didn't want to give them my time, and I was like, nope, I only have these days available to work and da 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 da. And I didn't
Yeah.
take it in that I was putting up this war front of like
Mm.
no one's crossing this line, no one's gonna get into it. And then I'm like, but then now I'm waking up and thinking the same thing. I'm going to sleep thinking the same thing, and then I'm going through my day thinking the same thing. And it's like they say, your thoughts are not necessarily your own. It's just a
Mm.
repetitive kind of cycle that your brain kind of does, and so forth. And it's like I didn't take it in that repetitive cycle of thoughts and me kind of leaning into it was giving me this anxiety kind of feeling. And again, that anxiety feeling, like you said, it makes you
Yeah.
feel unsafe. And then if you're unsafe, that means your nervous system's blown out. It's like it just keeps
Mm.
going. And I was like, well, when you just like
Exactly.
slap yourself. That's literally
You
the
almost
most
do have
bad.
to
I'm like,
shake
stop
yourself.
it, stop it. Like, oh my God.
It's literally like that because I love the way you worded it, how it's almost like rewatching that movie in your head. And it's a movie that, probably when you really dig into it, you can dissect it and challenge the things that you are saying to yourself because we sometimes attach to the ideas and beliefs that we have. And
Yes,
that in itself disrupts our system and our
yes,
mental state because the more we overthink something, and especially if it's negative, the more it starts to take effect on
yeah,
us. It's
it
like an
penetrates.
internal.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like I agree what you're saying, and now I'm so excited about it. Like I kind of like diagnosed my own issue.
You did it without my root cause intensive, which is
I know. I was
amazing.
just like, I'm so fascinated with everything that you're talking about. Then I was like, it just
Yeah.
clicked. It was like, Keisha, this is
Mm.
what you did to yourself. And like I knew, but it was just like talking to you now. It's like
Yeah.
it just like nailed it right there. But it's like, I feel like I'm so happy I connected that, because I know that's what people need to
Mm,
hear. You know what I mean? Like, they all
mm,
need to hear that's what they're doing to themselves, and they don't think it. They think sometimes it could be a bad diet, it could be this. Don't get me wrong,
yeah,
that also leads to those things too. You know, like, you're
yeah.
doing all this stuff, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, let me eat all this burger. Ah, you're eating all these other, like, you eat all these other crazy things, and then it spikes it, and then it just penetrates it deeper and deeper and deeper, and then
Mm,
they don't realize that they just kind of went down this whole crap state, and that's kind of what threw it all off. But it's literally what kind of happened to me. It's just that I feel people need to realize it happens to them too, because I feel like sometimes, correct me if I'm wrong, when people think they have this eczema episode, they feel guilty.
mm.
They feel
Oh
bad
yeah,
about themselves, and then they don't realize it may not even be them. It's just something that
yeah.
they've been doing, like a repetitive behavior that brought them to the
Mm.
state. But then that reflection of like guilt kind of just penetrates it even deeper.
Yeah, that's exactly it. There's so much guilt and shame around it because something that comes up quite often that I see with people is they think, what did I do to make my eczema bad? And it's that blame that they're putting on themselves. Oh, I've done something wrong, so it's that. But this is why I have such a gentle approach with just exploring what's going on and realizing that you just need the answers. You're not doing anything wrong. You just need a little bit of clarity, guidance, and answers. And especially my problem with diets and some of the information that's out there. Again, don't get me wrong. Like, I completely agree that sometimes there is something to do with the gut health, and that has a lot to do with it for sure. And sometimes people do have allergies and certain things that make them more sensitive to eczema. However, it's not the same for everyone because it certainly wasn't for me. And I remember feeling a lot of guilt whenever I would eat junk food or whenever I'd be having something that I wasn't meant to be having, and I'd feel shame around it. But actually, that just had an adverse effect because I was putting more stress and pressure on myself and overthinking. And then what happened was I ended up not really eating very much, and then feeling very like weak, very just under so much stress already, but having to like overthink everything that I'm consuming in my everyday life. It just added so much pressure. And then again, like you said, the guilt kicked in because I thought I shouldn't have done that and this is my fault. But I hear this a lot with people as well, feeling fear around food. And then if they do have something that they think they're not meant to, they almost think, oh, well, my eczema's going to flare up now and it's my fault. And they blame themselves for
Yeah.
that. Whereas it's not always the case. It's just figuring out what is right for you.
Mhm. And it's like, that was bang on. I really feel that same thing, because I've had that situation where when I was kind of fixing everything and I caught myself, I was like, okay, Mekisha, we're done. We're going to fix this now, and let's start putting all the things into place. So I realized that I also gave myself like high histamine, and that was like histamine
Mm.
intolerance, where I was eating a lot of foods that triggered me to basically be inflamed the whole entire time. So it wasn't breaking down the food. Instead, it was releasing histamine, where I was more so just hot. Like, I was inflamed. I was hot all the time. And I was like, what the heck did I do? Like, like freaking heck, I really messed everything up. So I felt guilty. I felt like crap. I was like, it's your
Yeah.
fault. It's your fault. How do you have an eczema brain and you gave yourself eczema again? Like,
Yeah.
I felt
You,
so garbage for like a good month. But then I was like, get over it. Like, put your big girl panties on and like just get over it. Some people can't do that. I understand. And I feel sympathy
yeah.
for a lot of people that can't. But for me, like, because I'm just such a determined person, that I was like, you flipping chick, why did you do this to yourself? Now let's figure out how to fix this, okay? One, stop thinking about that same stupid shit.
Mm.
Stop thinking about that stupid garbage for the next, every 5 seconds. Stop thinking about that, okay? You're fine. If you say no, it's no. But then it was like, okay, figure out what I was eating. So I started keeping like a little
Mm.
food journal, like a food diary, and I was writing things down and writing what I was eating. And I couldn't figure out what was I eating that was flaring it up. So when I realized I had histamine, after I really, researched it a little bit, it was like, these are the foods that you can eat. I was like, shoot, I'm gonna have to eat the same food for the next little while to figure out what I'm eating that's triggering me, and
Yeah.
two, to start introducing small good foods into my system. And then there was this one day I was like, yes, it's like my sister's having like a little party, and I was like, you know what? I can have guacamole. Avocados are good. Yeah, so I decided to eat like half a bowl, like an idiot. And this is when my eczema was going away. I was like, yes, I feel so good. I can eat a whole bunch of like a bowl of guacamole and chips. Yeah, let me tell you, like 2 days later, boom, it just blew up
Oh
again. I
no.
was like, what the heck? What did I do? And I felt guilty again. I felt shame. I was like, you fool,
Mm.
you did to yourself. Like, why'd you do
Oh
this?
no.
And then the same thoughts started coming back in. And then I realized, yeah, avocados are high in histamine. Who knew
Mm.
that? Everyone tells you that avocados are so good for you. And then
Right.
it's like, again, that same shame, that guilt, that whatever. I felt bad for eating. I didn't want to eat anything. I'm like, I'm gonna fast for a week. So I was like, so
Yeah.
I couldn't fast for that long, but I definitely felt that cycle kind of hit me back again of like guilt, shame, the attack, that whole kind of circle of like the nonsense start all over again. And I'm like, I can't do this to myself again. I felt
Mm.
like crap. I felt like I was starting from scratch again. And I
Mm.
agree with what you're saying. Some people don't necessarily, understand that you can't feel guilty about it. You just have to learn from it and then, kind of rehab yourself back out and start from scratch
Yeah.
again.
For sure, because something bad has happened, but then we also make ourselves feel worse when we make ourselves feel bad for it or punish ourselves for it, almost like you said, I'm going to fast for a week. I'm sure so many of us have had those thoughts. We're like, oh, okay, yeah, I need to redeem myself. But one thing that I've learned throughout my journey and also working with my clients is to be more gentle and loving towards yourself regardless. And I do stupid things now as well sometimes, like getting my nails done. I know that triggers me because I have sensitive skin,
Yeah.
even though I've healed for the most part.
Yeah.
My skin just does not like the chemicals. And when I did that, I thought, you know what, I just wanted to do something nice for myself. I'm not going to punish myself for that. Like, other people do it so frequently. This was a one-off occasion. And
Yeah.
if my skin does react, I will live with that. But I did
I
something to
want
treat
these nails.
myself. It seems so simple. And it's like these little things, as eczema sufferers, we always have to think twice about everything we do, which can be very overwhelming. And that's why I say be gentle and loving towards yourself regardless, because you're already going through so much having to live with this condition. Don't make it harder for yourself by punishing yourself and blaming yourself. And that's why it's so good to hear your story, because I think people can relate to these day-to-day situations that happen in our lives. It's just so common.
Yeah. Especially like avocados. Like when did you think avocados were gonna be bad for you?
Well, this is it. We consider things that we consider to be healthy. Sometimes they cannot be right for someone. It goes but down to your personal needs and your own body, and it's never going to be the same thing for everyone. Personally, I can get away with avocados, and I'm so glad because I love them. But other foods could trigger me, like dairy or eggs, and it's just there's no one size fits all. And I think that's the important part to take away
Yeah.
from all of this.
No, I appreciate your saying that because I can eat eggs all the time. Like that's my favorite food. Like I love eating eggs
Yeah.
all the time. It's just that when I realized what was a trigger and what wasn't, it's like bang, I knew it, and I was like,
Mm.
dang it, why did you eat the avocados? But I didn't know at that time. Now I'm like, I look at them, I'm
Yeah.
like, curse you, curse you. I was like, no, no, I can't have it. I know that looks so delicious, but it's true. There's not one size fits all, and we can't make ourselves feel guilty about it because that guilt is going to go into a whole different ball game, and we don't realize that's what's going to happen
Mm.
until the trigger happens. And sometimes these triggers are great, so that we kind of understand what we can and can't do and what our limit is. So as long as we kind of stay a little bit separate from it, I feel
Yeah.
people can recover from it a little bit faster versus feeling so like deep into it. Like I did for a couple of
Mm.
days because I felt like on fire, but then after that, I
Mm.
was like, Mekisha, like you were on the right track. Keep it up. Just don't eat that darn frickin' delicious looking thing.
Right, of course. And it's like just self-soothing yourself with the way that you talk to yourself.
Mm.
That's key there because our self-talk has a huge impact on our emotions, and then that influences our behaviors as well and everything else. So I always encourage people to have so much self-love towards themselves, that they're talking kindly to themselves every day, and almost self-soothing just by how you think and how you sort of train your brain to
Yeah.
feel about certain things.
You just said something that really got me right there, training your brain. So is that ideally what you're helping people with, is training their brain to kind of reprogram themselves?
Yeah, absolutely. It's about rewiring the patterns, and one of the things that tends to happen is because we've been living a certain way for so long and we've been stuck with these behaviors, it can be so hard to come out of them. But the magic about hypnotherapy is that it's just guiding you to change those old patterns, a very direct way of making changes, and ultimately getting your subconscious mind to show you the way forward and to show you a new way of doing things and helping you to get unstuck basically from those old patterns.
Perfect. So tell me, how is a quick way someone can help to retrain their brain? Like, there's are two things they can do, or one thing that they could do to kind of get themselves started towards retraining their brain or making new patterns.
Oh, great question. This is outside of hypnosis because I want everyone to be able to use this. So one of the first things that I usually say to people is to start recognizing your thoughts. Keep a thought tracker where you note down every negative thought that you have, or if a situation happens, write down everything that comes to your mind, and then you'll start to recognize the patterns, because when you have that awareness of how you tend to think, or the reoccurring thoughts that tend to pop up, you'll begin to realize where the problem is
Yeah.
and what you need to shift. And then the second part to that, another thing, is just finding a way to shift that and reframe it, as we spoke about earlier. So say, for example, something that's quite common as well with people who have eczema is, I can't go out because I look horrible and I hate the way my skin looks, everyone's going to judge. Instead, reframe that to, I love myself unconditionally. I don't care what people think because I want to have a good time. I'm going out regardless. So
Yeah.
it's just trying to see it from a different perspective. Or something else that I want to sort of, help people realize is that a lot of people want to show support and we feel like we're being judged or attacked. But one of my issues was that I thought everyone was just going to be judging me and think that I've got horrible skin, but actually no one was thinking that. When it came to like events with friends and family, they just wanted me there,
Hmm.
but I stopped myself from doing that. So it's, to sum it up, it's about recognizing the thought patterns that you have and then finding ways to creating new ways of thinking instead, replacing the old negative thoughts with new ones, and really reinforce that with affirmations. Listen to meditations, even record yourself sometimes, like saying these affirmations or repeat them out loud. The best time to do it is in the morning, when you're still in alpha state.
Yeah.
Listen to a recording, whether that's your own you create, because the problem with a lot of the videos and recordings out there is that it's not going to hit directly the same for everyone. Sometimes it won't resonate, sometimes it's not personal. That's why I use hypnotic suggestions and affirmations with my clients. But if you're not going to do that, just record yourself. Like, there's no reason why you can't listen to your own recordings, as that's something that I personally do. Because affirmations are great of, the more you repeat them, the more they start to sink in. So they're a great way of like training the brain to think in a new way.
Mm. No, I like when you were saying that, like writing or repeating it, writing it down so that you
Mm.
see what you are repeating, and then two, reframing it to something better and more positive. Because I find um, that's literally what I found. I was repeating the same dialogue over and over and over again. And I was just like, what the heck? Like, no one's calling you, no one's doing anything to you. You're repeating the same battle inside your
Yeah.
head. And when I started to reframe it a little bit unconsciously, I was just like, oh, everyone wants my time. I love it because I'm a popular person. But you know what? It's okay. I'm just not going to give everyone my time because my time is valuable. So when I started reframing it and changing it a little bit, it started becoming comical. But then
Mm.
I wasn't repeating that same like other, the other type of repetitive, scenario in my head over and over again. And then it started to die down. So I do like that. And to touch on that other point that you're making about not going out, there's a lot
Mm.
of people that have eczema and they shut themselves apart from the world. They want to be like, I'm not good enough to go outside because I don't look good. And there was a time I was sitting, I'm like, no, I'm not going anywhere. No one sent me an invite. I'm not going anywhere. I am going to lock myself up until I figure out my problems. And my friendships kind of suffered a little bit. Everyone's like, where are you?
Mm.
What's wrong with you? And it was just more like, I just didn't feel myself. Like I usually feel like you feel almost incapacitated. Like you just don't want to, you can't stretch, you can't move, you can't do anything. So I
Yeah.
almost felt like I couldn't do anything. And then when I looked at it, I'm like, we're getting closer to the Christmas season, Mekisha. Like, you really going to lock yourself up? Like you're not going to go outside. So I started to kind of go out to a few things, and I dressed a little bit more mindfully. But then I started to be like, who cares? Just wear this skirt, just wear some nylons underneath it so no one sees your legs. So I started to become a little bit more conscious of it. But then I eventually got out of it. I was just like,
Mm.
you can't lock yourself up. You feel mentally insane because
Oh
you're
yeah.
just not talking to people. You feel bad, but no one's even looking at your skin, girl. Like, it's dark, it's no one's looking at your skin. So I understand, if it's in the summer, it would be a little bit different, but I just feel like we put too
Mm.
much emphasis on the fact that people are staring at us, but really it's just our own
Yeah.
self staring at ourselves.
Oh, I love the way that you worded that because it is us. We're more critical towards ourselves than other people, and that's sort of what I was trying to get at before when I said, other people just they don't think the same way as you. You could be thinking of all these negative things, and other people aren't even thinking
Yeah,
twice about it. And it's so difficult, when you just want to be able to feel free and confident within yourself because that should be a birthright. But
yeah,
eczema sort of strips that away from you. It strips away your independence, and what you said really resonates with, avoiding plans. That's sort of what I did. I remember locking myself in my room sometimes when I was going through the worst flare ups. I had even messaged my best friend saying, don't message me today because I'm not in a state where I can talk to anyone. And something important that you touched on was how it does damage friendships.
yeah.
This is something that's so common because we tend to disassociate, we tend to distance ourselves, we tend to remove ourselves because we think we're a burden or other people are going to see us in a vulnerable state. It's a lot to take on mentally as well, so that's why we do it. It makes sense, but actually, you can feel so much lighter when you share your load with other people and share your experiences, and you'll find that more often than not you will get support and love.
Hmm.
And I think the frustrating part about this is that sometimes people won't get it and you'll get all these like silly comments and
Yeah.
unsolicited advice, which I know we all hate and can't stand.
Yep.
But that's like the worst that can happen. Or if someone does even say anything, critical, judgmental, that's on them. It says a lot about them, and they have no idea what it's like to go through it. And you could just think of them as like this ridiculous person that has no idea what they're talking about. But
That's
just
not
don't
a
let it
friend. They gotta
stop.
get cut. You're like,
Mm.
figured out who's I don't need. Like, thanks for exposing yourself. I'm so happy
Exactly.
now.
Exactly. That's all they're doing. So like, okay, you just showed yourself. I'm just gonna remove myself from your presence now and
Yeah.
do
Now
my
you
own
don't need to
thing.
come out with you. But it's true.
Exactly.
We really do, like, we tend to feel like we need to, like, lock up until, like, with
Mm.
this Loch Ness monster. Like, I can't come out. Gotta tuck back in there until the other side of us comes out. And people don't realize
Yeah.
that, yeah, it's not necessary. We need to still look for those supportive, relationships, because again, if we don't and we stay inside them, we play that same, recorded memory and that same kind of repetitive negative story in our head, and then it penetrates even deeper, and then it's hard to get back out.
Mm.
Whereas, and if we get out and we start talking to people, then we change that narrative and things start to get a little bit more lighter and feels a little bit more um, I don't know, loving, like you said,
Mm.
self love to yourself, and then things change.
Mm, that's so true, and that's exactly my thought process as well. You have to change the narrative, don't stay stuck, and it can be really difficult to do that. But sometimes baby steps are the way forward. So even going out on a day where maybe you're not feeling your best, but you're still well enough to go out, just go do it, and
Yeah.
don't avoid making plans. If you want to go do something, life is too short for that. You've got to live
Yeah.
it to the fullest and find your own freedom and confidence as well. Just think of yourself so highly that nothing externally can affect you, and you just do your thing. And we see so many people, do that in this community where they had the same struggles, but they sort of push through them, and it does a lot for your well-being as well, your mental state, because you're not feeling trapped within the same four walls and
Yeah.
feeling like nothing's changing.
Yeah, it just needs to change the environment, like get out of it,
Mm,
so then that way you can feel a little bit more hopeful as well. So
exactly.
you were saying things about, nighttime and daytime being a little bit different. Like, do you have things that people should do at nighttime versus daytime, just to kind of keep them from, going too deep into the negative train, or just to change
Mm.
those habitual thought processes?
Yeah, that's a good question. So, morning, I know this is not going to be possible for a lot of people if they have to go straight to work, but you can still work around it. I say use that time for yourself to switch off. So, something that I've been trying to do, I sometimes fail, is just not look at my phone.
Yeah.
I need my cup of coffee, but that's my form of self care. So,
Yeah. Yeah, everyone has that.
after
Yeah.
yeah, after I've done my thing, I'll make a cup of coffee and I sit in bed reading my book and I don't look at my phone. Unless I really, really have to, if I've got meetings or things planned. But on the days that I'm off, that's what I will do. And I just stay with even before reading my book, I'll reflect on the dreams that I had, because sometimes I do a lot of dream analysis as well. So sometimes I try to
Yeah.
understand what I might be experiencing or what's going on within me through my dreams. But I just really sit with the quietness and just find that moment of stillness, because that can help with regulating your nervous system and preparing you for the day. And as mentioned earlier on, first thing when you wake up, if possible, listen to affirmations, listen to a short recording. There's so many out there.
Hmm.
I also have a free hypnosis recording
Mm.
in my link, so feel free to download that. I'm sure my details will be there somewhere. But
Yeah.
do something that will start your day right, and set the tone for the rest of your day.
Hmm.
And as for nights and evenings, this is going to be difficult for a lot of us, me including, but switch off your phone again.
I know. That one is hard, but I do put it on vibrate, so then that way I don't get
You
disturbed.
can, yeah. I say the evenings are best for self-care, meditations, switching off, not doing anything where your brain's going to be overstimulated, preparing yourself to have a really good sleep.
Hmm.
So maybe a herbal tea, maybe some nighttime yoga just before bed. I'd say as well, some people prefer to read a book just before they go to sleep, as that makes them a little bit more tired.
Yeah.
But really use that time for self-care and switching off, letting your brain wind down,
Hmm.
so that you could have a good sleep, because sleep also impacts your eczema. When you rest, you're giving your body the chance to heal.
Yeah. I like what you're talking about in terms of like shutting down at nighttime. There was a week
Mm.
where I was meditating every day at nighttime for about like 20 minutes before going to sleep. I slept like a baby. I loved it. The one time, and it just takes one time to do it, I find, honestly.
Mm.
I was like, let me go watch some Love is Blind. Love that show. That show's hilarious. I was like,
I
let me
know.
watch this. I had the worst sleep ever. I couldn't sleep. I was waking up. I woke up with like irritations, and I was like, "Why? Why did I do that?" And usually it's okay to watch it, but I think because I watched it
Mm.
so late at night with like some popcorn, not even popcorn. It was paratha. I love paratha. I'm eating paratha, and I was watching, and I was like, "This is so good." Yeah, worst sleep of my life. I was like, what made me do that? Like something in my brain told me like, let's go and cozy up to some blindness date, like Love is Blind. And I had the worst sleep. And then all the other days when I was meditating, relaxing, and going to sleep, I had
Mm.
the greatest sleep. So yeah, 100% I agree with that in terms of like your takedown before you go to bed should be a lot more calming and soothing so that you're not distressed, because I felt like the next day when I woke up my skin was like, meh. It was like it could be
Mm.
better. It could have felt better, but yeah, it's the meditating at nighttime that not
Yeah.
everyone has the ability to do because they might work later shifts at night and so forth. But
Yeah.
I would still suggest even taking like 20 minutes or 15 minutes before going to sleep to not look at your phone, but go straight into meditation. I feel like that would definitely do a better kind of like nighttime routine for better
For
sleep, better
sure.
care.
Yeah, I find that the same as you mentioned, it's the same thing with me. If I meditate before going to sleep, I have a really peaceful sleep. And also, if I'm not overstimulating my brain with devices and just endless scrolling, which I try my best not to do, but it's
Yeah.
just so destructive. And something else I wanted to add, but is a really nice way to end the day, is just focus on three things that you're grateful for. And then
Yeah.
if there was something that you're not too happy about, that you did, just think tomorrow I'm going to do better, and I'm making that commitment to myself. So you're already going to set the tone for the next day, but you have to focus on the feeling of gratitude and I guess appreciation for what you experienced during the day as well, because again it comes down to improving the way that we feel, and it just raises like all the good feelings within you when you focus on all the good around you, and it just again that's another way to
Yeah.
retrain the brain and focusing on the good rather than the bad.
No, you really hit on the hammer. Thank you so much. Like, I feel it's true. Like, there's too much stimulation at nighttime, and I think
Mm,
that's why people don't have the best feeling when they go to sleep. And then when they're like, "Why is my skin still itching me?" or "It's going through that cycle again," it's because we're not breaking that pattern of being stimulated and then going to sleep. Back in the day, we didn't have all these phones for us to
yeah,
sit there and be too overstimulated to go to sleep. Now they're just everything is being thrown in your face that you can't disconnect from your phone. And that's
mm,
why there's so much people that have disturbed sleep, or they just don't have good night's sleep. They're not getting the deep sleep and so forth that they need. It's because there's too much stimulation, before they go to sleep, and they really need to kind of
yeah.
like separate that. So yeah, I appreciate you saying that.
No, thank you for asking that, because it's a great question. Again, it's part of the whole system of creating changes, daily changes, that can overall make it such a big difference with your health and your skin.
No, thank you so much, Mahak. I honestly, I could be on here for another like hour and a half talking to you. I was like, I know you have it's later at your in your country right now, but I really would love to have you back on our show again to go a little bit deeper in this, because I feel like there's so many great pieces that we covered for people in terms of just helping their overall skin and really understanding why their brain is triggering their body. We didn't have to
Mm,
even talk about food. We didn't even talk about food. And the just our mind itself already triggered
yeah.
eczema in so many different ways. And now I understand and how to switch it off and how to fix it a little bit and get on the right track. I definitely
Mm.
would love to have you back on to the show. It's such a great topic that we discuss. I feel like we just scratched like the top surface of it.
That's exactly, you took the words out of my mouth. That's exactly what I was going to say. We barely touched the surface because there's so many different elements and aspects to eczema, and so many things that we could still dive into.
Mhm.
So I'd love that, and thank you so much for having me with this.
Yeah.
I feel like we could, like you said, go on about this for ages, and there's so much to it. But it's been great to touch on the topics that we've covered today.
Yeah. No, I definitely love it. Well, there are literally these two questions that I ask everyone before I check off. So I definitely want to ask you these questions because I'm excited to know what everyone's, their finishing tip is, or what they do on a regular basis. So my question to you is, if there's one thing that you need to have for your self care, what is it?
Oh, that's such a good one. I probably couldn't live without my spiritual side, and by that I mean engaging in a daily practice such as meditation, self hypnosis, listening to affirmations, just having that time out. That makes such a personal difference, like to me and how I feel, and it just because there's so much chaos in the external world,
Yeah.
having that time of quietness where you just tune into your body
Mm.
and switch off. It just, yeah, it's so peaceful.
No, I like that. It's a different twist to it because everyone always names a physical thing. You name
Ah,
something that has nothing to do with buying something, getting something, and going somewhere to get something. You're like,
yeah,
no, it's right here. Okay, it's like
yeah.
right in here. So I like that. That's the first time I've had that. And then
Oh wow.
you kind of touched on it already. The second question is, what do you normally like to do for your self care? If you had that one
Mm.
day, what do you like doing for your self care?
Yeah. So Definitely the self-hypnosis and meditations, but I guess another thing that I've been like tuning into more is working on myself, and that just means finding new ways to improve, because I realize that healing is a continuous journey, it never ends. So
Yeah.
I try to do something every day where I feel like I'm learning something new or working towards a better future where I become a better version of myself, and that could mean so many different things.
Yeah.
Reading a self-help book, reflecting on anything that I feel like is keeping me stuck, journaling.
Hmm.
There's so much that you can do, but again, it ties in with the first part of the question. I just try to look into spirituality and see what other doors there are, because that's ultimately what led me to where I am now. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with the spirituality part. I'm very, very spiritual. I'm always, meditating and really understanding myself and different ways of healing myself. And I
Mm,
really don't always, express that a lot to people about my spirituality side. They kind of learn about it when they get to know me. But I'm very spiritual, and I
mm,
find when we're on that path of spirituality, you get to see and understand so many things about yourself and how to heal a little bit deeper. And it helps with that self care portion. I think self care doesn't always have to be like, oh, I just gave myself a facial. There's like
yeah.
so many other aspects in there that can go beyond just like, oh, I just put some cream on my face and this is great. There's so much more people can do for their self care that kind of ties into spirituality versus it just being a physical item or a physical thing. It's a lot more that can go deeper into that. So thank you so much, Mahak. I appreciate it. I'm
Thank
excited
you.
to hear a little bit more about you on our next one. But I would love for you to tell everybody where they can find you, find your resources, or get in touch with you.
Sure. So I'm more active on Instagram. You can follow me there, and as I mentioned earlier, I've got a free recording that's focused on eczema. So my Instagram handle is hypnotherapy with Mehek, and alternatively, if you don't use Instagram, you could just drop me an email, and I'm sure that will be somewhere to find.
Okay, perfect. I'll put all of those notes in the show notes for everyone to have and access it as well too. But thank you, Mahek, for coming on today. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. There's so many things that hit me on the head, and I'm quite sure our viewers and our listeners will have some things to resonate with for sure, and some tools to get them kind of going on the right path with their mental state and their retraining their brain. So thank you so much for coming on today.
It's been an absolute pleasure, and I really enjoyed this conversation as well. Time just flew by, and I really do hope that the viewers will be able to pick up something helpful from this and take away something new that they may have not heard before.
Yeah, no, I loved it. Thank you so much, Mahat.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to the Skin Deep podcast. Don't forget to download your free guide to our 10 hacks to great skin. Just check the link in our bio. I look forward to seeing you in our next episode. Have an amazing day, everyone, and enjoy your self-care Sunday.